incredible calmness starting in 5th grade that like all of this is not real. And like, let me just get through it. And then my real life will start. And like to this day, I really do think the first day I worked at Shoppers Discount Liquors, then Wine Library, like when I came home from college, that like May 19th, 1998, and I came home and stayed with my parents for a couple months before I got an apartment closer to the store. I would argue that day, that Monday, May 18th, 1998, is still outside the birth of my children, like top 5 days of my life, because there was like this, I actually remember it vividly. My parents lived 45 minutes from the liquor store, drive on Route 78 in New Jersey. And I just vividly remember coming from like the back, woods of where my parents lived onto the highway. This was it. Z100 was on, like the morning zoo. Like I got a coffee at the gas station. And I just like literally exhaled like 12 years of anxiety. And I was just like, literally like worded to myself, like now my life begins. And I was hyped and it's, you guys see it publicly now. I'm passionately excited. I'm very fortunate. I live a life where I like what I do. And, a lot of people don't have that luxury. And I make a lot of content and talk a lot about it because it was really one of the best days of my life.
Well, I want to ask you a little about that in a bit, but there's one thing I wanted to start with, which is you're very intentional. And so when I was prepping for this, I wrote down my intent. I was like, before I write any of the notes or the background or the questions I want to ask is what's the intent? What are we here to do? And I wrote down the following. So I just want to read this out loud to you because I feel like sharing my intent, I feel like you will get it and it will help. I said, what I want this episode to feel like. I said, I want this to feel like people get to feel like what it's like to hang out with Gary Vee, not interview Gary Vee.
I like that.
Trading stories, dinner and drinks vibe, conversation, not interview. The audience leaves feeling like they just chopped it up with Gary Vee. Here's what I don't want to do. Interview him, ask him the same old questions about the same old topics, which will trigger him to just go into autopilot because nobody can help it if we do that. That's our fault. And the audience will feel like he's talking at them. So I wanted to say that out loud, mostly as a reminder to myself, because it's my job to make that happen, but also because you're big on intention and being very intentional. And I wanted to actually reference one more thing about high school, which is I sent this to a buddy who had interviewed you on a different podcast. I said, any tips, anything you would say that would help me out here? Because this is a big deal. Gary Vee's coming on the show. And I said, give me some advice. And he just said, he read what I wrote and he goes, Brendan Warnicki. I didn't know who that was. And he goes, I heard him say